September 21st, 2024, a monumental day in Navy football history. No, it's not because Blake Horvath will become the third Navy quarterback to eclipse 400 yards of total offense in a game, joining Will Worth in 2016 and Brian Broadwater in 2000 as the only Navy quarterbacks to do that, although that's pretty cool. And no, it's not because Navy beat Memphis for the first time since 2018, snapping a 5-game series losing streak, though that's pretty dandy too. It's a monumental day because this random first quarter completion from Blake Horvath to Thomas Scully was the first time a Navy tight end caught a pass in 22 years. How does something like this happen? How does a position just disappear for 2 decades? Not only will we look at why the tight end position disappeared, we will look at the last Navy tight end of the 2000s. Steve Mercer, a man who did more with 2 career catches than any other Navy midshipman. After all, Navy had great tight ends in the past. Greg Papajohn, no, not that Papajohn, this one, caught a pair of touchdown passes in the 1981 Liberty Bowl and earned a spot in the Liberty Bowl's all-1980s team. His last touchdown in the 1981 Liberty Bowl narrowed Navy's deficit to 3 with 8 seconds remaining in an eventual 31-28 loss to the Ohio State Buckeyes. Emphasis on the. Later on, Kevin Hickman thrived in Navy's pass-happy offenses of the early 1990s and was drafted by the Detroit Lions in 1995. The reason tight ends disappeared at Navy is simple: schematic change. We could stop there, but it turns out there's a deeper story to tell about this forgotten tight end, this Steve Mercer. Many football fans know Navy ran the flexbone for decades, but many do not realize the flexbone is a variation of the run and shoot, famous for its lack of tight ends and 4 wide receiver layout. Not all flexbone teams are the same, as Army used a tight end in their variation for years, but this was due to its gradual transition from a wishbone scheme focused on a between the tackles run game. When Navy switched to the flexbone in 1995, they brought in an unheralded offensive coordinator from Hawaii to be the architect of this offense. His name was Paul Johnson. Before he was a household name head coach at Navy, Georgia Southern, and Georgia Tech, his schemes were more wide open and close to that run and shoot lineage. Just look at this set from the 1996 Aloha Bowl. Imagine seeing Army or Air Force run that today. Johnson did not use tight ends in his flexbone, and thus Navy did not in their first few years running the option. After Johnson left at the conclusion of the 1996 season to take the Georgia Southern head coaching job, his protege, Ken Niumatalolo, took over as offensive coordinator. Niumatalolo left after the 1998 season, and tight ends re-entered the offense with the departure of the Paul Johnson influence. Truth be told, they didn't make much of an impact in the offense. Navy still ran the flexbone, but it now had a greater focus on power. In the brief 3-year return of the tight end, the position only caught 3 passes. Dave Rautenbach caught a 56-yard touchdown against Akron in 1999. But the other 2 catches came in 2 of college football's biggest regular season stages, both by one player, the aforementioned Steve Mercer, and both catches have much impact with added context. Let's move to 2000. Notre Dame is about to travel to Orlando to play Navy in the country's longest uninterrupted intersectional rivalry until 2020. Thanks a lot, COVID. Since Navy is the designated home team, CBS will broadcast this game nationally. This was the norm from 1996 to 2018 due to CBS's long-term broadcast contract with the Army-Navy game. In even-numbered years, when Navy was the home team, CBS broadcast the game. As a result, over-the-air television networks, ABC, CBS, NBC for example, have aired the last 31 Navy-Notre Dame games starting in 1993. During this time, several regular over-the-air television rivalries, including Michigan-Penn State, LSU-Alabama, Ohio State-Penn State, the Red River rivalry between Oklahoma and Texas, and even the Iron Bowl, Alabama-Auburn, have been relegated to cable. Notre Dame Navy has not. It's not a stretch to say Notre Dame Navy is one of the college football regular season's biggest stages. CBS's contract for the Notre Dame Navy game gave an extra appearance on over-the-air TV to some of Navy's best post-Roger Staubach teams, such as the 10-2 2004 squad, the 9-4 2010 team, and the 2016 Navy team, the program's only team to play in the American Athletic Conference Championship game and the last to defeat Notre Dame to this day. Unfortunately, it also gave extra CBS airtime to some of the worst Navy teams ever, like the 1998 team that went 3-8 with two of their wins coming against 0-11 Kent State and FCS Colgate, and lost 30-0 to Notre Dame on CBS. Or the 2002 team that went 2-10 with wins over 3-9 SMU and 1-11 Army, but somehow nearly beat Notre Dame on CBS, allowing the Irish to score 15 unanswered points in the final 5 minutes in a 30-23 loss. Yet, the 2000 Navy team was the worst of these. After averaging 275 rushing yards per game from 1995 to 1999, the wheels fell off to begin the 2000 season. The midshipmen averaged 114 rushing yards per game in the first 5 games of the season, including 4 of Navy's 20 worst single-game rushing yardage outputs since 1995. Of course, this didn't translate to points, as Navy averaged 7.8 points per game in its first 5 games of the 2000 season. The 2000 team finished the year averaging 178.2 rushing yards per game, still the second lowest per game total for Navy since 1995, barely beating the 3-7 2020 team's average by half a yard. Awaiting this Navy team was a 3-2 Notre Dame squad that took then number 1 Nebraska to overtime earlier in the year and would eventually end up in the Fiesta Bowl. Not to mention, the midshipmen had lost 36 straight to Notre Dame dating back to 1964. But we don't play games on paper, right? Well, this one might as well have been played on paper. Notre Dame raced to a 24-0 halftime lead thanks to not 1, but 2 Tony Driver fumble return touchdowns. Nothing went Navy's way. The following sequence pretty much encapsulates Navy's day. Despite being up 24-0 and having absolutely no reason to throw the football, Notre Dame threw an interception to Navy, giving them the ball in field goal range at the Notre Dame 24 with 8 seconds left in the first half. Well, maybe the midshipmen can get some points on the board to get some confidence before halftime and come back. On first down, an ineligible man downfield penalty nullified a 3-yard completion from Brian Broadwater to Brian Williams. No, not that Brian Williams, pushing Navy back to the 29-yard line. Navy couldn't even get a cheap 3-yard completion at the end of the first half without something going wrong. But no big deal, you're still in field goal range. And David Hill's 46-yard field goal is way off and the score is still 24-0 at halftime. Under no circumstances was this going to be Navy's day. Notre Dame added 2 touchdowns to make the score 38-0 early in the fourth quarter. With Notre Dame's backups in, Navy finally got something going. This is when our hero, Steve Mercer, made his first career catch. Ed Malinowski found Steve Mercer wide open down the middle from 20 yards. The catch was a first by a Navy tight end against Notre Dame since Kevin Hickman caught 6 passes in the 1994 game. It was the longest catch by a midshipman tight end against the Fighting Irish since Dave Bergholz caught a 44-yard pass from the great Alton Grizzard in the 1990 game. It is still the last catch by a Navy tight end against Notre Dame to date. Yes, there has only been 1 tight end reception against Notre Dame in the last 31 years. Hey, Steve Mercer even has a fun story about this catch. I got laid out playing football against Notre Dame's Tony Driver after catching a 20-yard pass. Yes, I held on. I played the rest of the game with concussion and cannot recall what happened. Apparently we lost. There really isn't any way to smoothly transition from that, but we'll try. Navy lost 45-14, and their 58 rushing yards in that game is still the 6th worst rushing output by a Navy offense since 1995. Mercer's reception against Notre Dame was his only catch in the 2000 season. By season's end, Navy went 1-10, but at least they beat Army, but barely. The midshipmen nearly blew a 27-7 second half lead, a very questionable illegal touching call on a fourth quarter Army onside kick, and an even more questionable running into the kicker penalty helped Navy escape with a 30-28 win and avoid its first winless season since 1948. I mean, I know I'm an Army fan and it seems like I'm biased, but tell me as a third party that this isn't ridiculous. Either call. Well, I mean, before I get riled up, let's just move on. Let's fast forward to 2001. Navy started 0-9 entering the Army Navy. Their offense was just as bad as the previous year, averaging 181 rushing yards per game, still the third lowest for any Navy team since 1995. For the second straight year, Navy had to beat their arch rivals to avoid their first winless season since 1948. For obvious reasons, the 2001 Army-Navy game had special importance, coming less than 3 months after the 9/11 attacks, making it the most impactful Army-Navy game in decades. And of course, it would air on CBS, as it had every year since 1996 and all but 6 years since 1982. Army controlled the game from start to finish. The Black Knights first took the lead on a 60-yard touchdown run by Ardell Daniels to make the score 7-0. Then, a very lucky catch and run by wide receiver Brian Bruinton extended the lead to 13-0, and Army never looked back. To start the second half, Omari Thompson returned Navy's kickoff for a touchdown to give Army a commanding 23-3 lead, a near insurmountable lead for a team that averaged 138 passing yards per game that season in Navy. Well, the midshipmen added a couple field goals to make it a 23-9 game at the start of the fourth quarter, but a fumble in their own territory allowed Army to make it a 26-9 game with 3:38 left in the fourth quarter. After a Navy interception and an Army 3-and-out, Navy got the ball with 59 seconds left. Navy probably wasn't going to miraculously score 3 times, but they weren't going to quit. You've heard all the cliches about Service Academy football before. There was time for one more drive. Third-string quarterback Craig Candido is now in the game. He started the season opener against Temple and led the offense to only 49 rushing yards, their 4th lowest total in the last 30 years. He would later redeem himself by scoring 7 touchdowns in the 2002 Army-Navy game. Yet, this moment will not be about him. Candido starts the drive by completing a 13-yard pass to J.P. Blakesmith, a pocket passer recruited to play quarterback but then converted to wide receiver to help the team. It is the only catch of Blakesmith's career. Less than 3 years later, Blakesmith would die in the Second Battle of Fallujah on November 11th, 2004. The great documentary, From Philadelphia to Fallujah, immortalized his story and others who played in the 2001 Army-Navy game. May Blakesmith rest in peace. Following an incomplete pass, Candido connected with Amir Jenkins on the sidelines for 39 yards to set Navy up with a 1st and goal at the Army 5. Navy runs a play action, and who's there to catch it? Steve Mercer. The catch is Mercer's 2nd of his career. It is the first touchdown catch by a Navy tight end in an Army-Navy game since Kevin Hickman caught a 12-yard touchdown to seal a 21-3 win for the midshipmen in 1991. Just for good measure, Steve Mercer caught the 2-point conversion as well for the midshipmen. This is the last 2-point conversion in an Army-Navy game to this day, and was the first since 1992. Mercer's 2-point conversion is one of just 10 in the 67 Army-Navy games since the inception of the two-point conversion in 1958. Mercer joined an exclusive list that includes Heisman winners Pete Dawkins of Army and Roger Staubach of Navy, along with Army All-American and College Football Hall of Famer Bob Anderson. Despite this, Navy did not recover the onside kick with 23 seconds left and lost 26-17, finishing winless for just the second time ever and the first time since 1948. Mercer never caught another pass for two-point conversion again. Paul Johnson came back to Navy to right the ship in 2002 after a successful stint as Georgia Southern's head coach. But that meant the end of the tight end. Steve Mercer switched to tackle and then graduated after the 2002 season. His career ended with 2 catches for 24 yards, that 1 touchdown, and the 1 two-point conversion. When Johnson left for the head coaching job at Georgia Tech in 2008, Ken Niumatalolo replaced him, meaning Johnson's flexbone stayed. When Navy needed extra bodies on the line in short yardage situations, they would bring their wide receivers next to the tackles, but still line them up in a two-point receiver stance. After Niumatalolo's firing after the 2022 season, Navy brought back the tight end as an extra blocker in 2023, but the position caught no passes. The following year, Navy installed Drew Cronick's Millennial Wing T and got the tight ends more involved, with the position catching 10 passes for 147 yards and a touchdown. Steve Mercer only made 2 catches in his career, but they were on 2 of the biggest stages for any Navy player and on national TV on CBS. They also created some of the craziest statistical oddities in college football history. He showed up at just the right time for his position to reappear for 3 years and then disappear again for over 2 decades. This alone makes Steve Mercer a cult hero worthy of this mini documentary. Like and subscribe for more mini documentaries like this. God bless you.